everything else versus Bitcoin essentially gets spent and dies.
I want to be able to have reactive security, and I think OpVault is today the most straightforward, easiest to use way to do that.
I will not be insulted by a clockmaker.
Overall, these kind of ways to make the network easier to both build on and interact with, I think is a really big deal.
If Bitcoin existed when we started Twitter, we would not have to go down the ad model path. I mean, it's simple as that.
Integrating Lightning into a social network is the killer app.
Hello, and welcome to the Bitcoin.Review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and CoinKite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run CoinKite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the cold card and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. So I'm a little hangover, moving slow today. I did sauna for an hour earlier this morning to try to sweat it out, but still, man, this one is a hard one. And so cope with me. All right, so today I have a pretty cool group of guys here. Mr. Craig from Sparrow. Hi, Craig.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Nice to have you, sir. A new face, Mr. Rob Hamilton, the mini-script influencer.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. Good to be here.
Okay. And Alex Leishman.
Hey, great to be on the show.
Probably the only Elixir developer in the whole Bitcoin space.
Maybe, actually.
So, all right. So I started a little housekeeping here. This week I started the Learn to Build campaign to show that COLDCARD can be reproducibly built. But also, most importantly, I think my realization is that we should not have websites that rate projects, because if they're successful, they become gatekeepers. And then if they don't like anybody or don't like somebody, they might not list them, or they might list them and never review them, or, it's not a good set of incentives. So I've come to the conclusion I don't like it. So learn to build yourself.
I was a participant of Learn to Build. It was really tricky. You had to check out the branch that was tagged for the firmware and then run one Docker command. So it was very involved. I can understand the friction in trying to get it all stood up. But it's cool to see, though, like to offer that functionality that you're able to bit by bit reproduce the entire firmware for the cold card is, that's just great security practice.
And it's not just cold card, right? I mean, like many hardware wallets do it. Many hardware wallets have trouble with this. I think like a lot of the software people who sort of like have opinions about this stuff, they don't understand that hardware has a lot of limitations. And like, building hardware is not easy, even when it's like not reproducible. So like making hardware reproducible it's a big of achievement that the whole industry is doing this. And to have the reviewers who are not really qualified to build this stuff, wanting to be reviewers, it's tricky. I think if you're gonna be a reviewer, you have to be like ready to, one, take shit from everybody, and two, like be an absolute expert in the topic, right? Otherwise, it's like, like I think I don't know if it was this project or another, but like some people were angry that like you couldn't reproduce the bytes of the signature, and I'm like, okay, but like the whole point is that you don't have the keys to make the signature, so it is bit by bit, except for the signature bytes. And anyways, this topic is very complicated when you get down to the tech, and very few people understand this really. And I think that generates extra drama on Twitter and things like that because of that. But I wanted to get this out of the way. It is reproducibly built. The guys on that project have confirmed with the help of Carl Dawn, and yep. One thing is, don't create your own scripts to build. Use the scripts that the project provides to build. Otherwise, you're in for a pile of hurt. So that was that. Hey, Craig, is Sparrow reproducible? I can't remember now.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So
Yes.
there's similar to what it sounds like, the COLDCARD firmware. You basically just have to clone it on a specific tag, run one command, and then you can just diff that against the sort of downloaded tar.gz or .zip if you're on Windows, and you can check that all the files that have been built match the ones that you download. So yes, that has been the case for a few versions now.
How did I forget this? Because when I checked the signature before and added to the binary watch bot that checks the signature there on those downloadable binaries, which I'm more concerned than I am about the actual reproducibleness of the project.
Yeah, agreed. I think that binary bot is a very helpful thing. I mean, it's as a developer, you know that you're being watched, so you have to be careful when you put your release out. But that's a good thing.
Yes.
That additional little bit of pressure isn't a bad thing. I've come to realize that. And yeah, I mean, it's just so helpful to know that there's this external service that even if GitHub does something, we all know that things are safe because we've got this external viewpoint and we'll know pretty fast if there's anything funny that happens behind the scenes.
I mean, something did happen. GitHub was messing with the actual file of I think, join markets. So the signatures were not matching. I mean, like GitHub has been hacked before. Remember when that kid went and changed the date or something on the Rails repository or something like that? It was years ago. And, it is a centralized point of failure. They do have their own keys and they are, government cucked. And now Microsoft cucked too. So, if I was a state actor, I'd go and just replace the binaries of say, Sparrow targeted at a specific, demographic, right? Because they have that capability. And then, or COLDCARD or whatever. And then that specific demographic wouldn't set off the big alarms, right? But they would get an evil release if they don't check the signatures. It's very important that people check signatures.
It is.
I think that's happened for Electrum, right?
Yes, he did a few times, more than once. And remember, SSL certificates on websites are completely bullshit, right? It's you have your registrar or they are running SSL, or now everybody just put it through Cloudflare, right? And it's not really, you can't self-sign anymore. Used to be the case you could self-sign, but browsers now go big red. You're self-signed. Oh, it's not valid. If it's not being held by a server the state actor has access to, it's not a valid certificate. And it's not even to get into Heartbleed and all that other shit, right? So yes, build and check your own shit. Learn to build.
Yeah, but I mean, more than that, just learn to verify, right? When you downloaded Sparrow or COLDCARD firmware or whatever it is, just always verify. It should become something that you do with every piece of software that you get. And if you can't do it, then you should wonder whether you really need to run that piece of software. That's my view on it now.
Yeah, it's and don't update too fast. Always I'm super I don't like updating anything anymore. I'm scared of everything. The computer is completely on. The phone is completely on. Right? So I just don't update anything. It's less known safe version of something. Just use that until you absolutely have no choice. Because then you have to go check the project, check the dependencies, check ideally even check the compiler, right? It's kind of interesting, but at least on the Mac stack, there is some attempt by Apple to check the signature of all the software that's running on the computer. They do some interesting stuff that you have to be very, very advanced person on FreeBSD or Linux to do, which most people don't. It's scary out there. So people should be very, very conservative in their updates. Moving on the housekeeping to COLDCARD PRs, we have this feature coming now called Seed Vault, where you can store more seeds on the same COLDCARD. You can store also, you can store even a BIP85 plus passphrase as your new seed. Essentially, if it's a seed, you can store and you can use it. So you can apply the xpriv now as your operating thing, and you can unload it as well, which is kind of cool.
Is that Would I be able to pass in a PSBT and the cold card could figure out like which of my saved vaults I'm trying to sign from, or do I need to like load the vault profile on the cold card? Like, are you able to
You
access?
have to load it.
Okay.
You load it and then it becomes your signing thing.
Got it. Okay.
A bit like Seed Signer, but like it's a different sort of purpose and sort of like the idea really is like you need a secure environment to like operate seeds that may not be your principal seed, right? Like you have backups that you're trying to deal with. You have like, or like sweep something, or, extra seeds from test devices that are not necessarily BIP85, that kind of stuff. We just want to expand this to like, okay, listen, it's the device can sign shit, so might as well sign for other seeds. Because we do have the ephemeral seeds now too, which now they can be stored. The other thing is now we can write logs. Well, working on writing logs to the microSD card when you use the HSM mode. Alex, I think you used HSM before, and Craig, you were working on maybe integrating it. Now you can log it, which is kind of cool, and store locally a log of everything that happened.
That's great. I love that.
I had an interesting idea today on how one could use ColdCard HSM. What about a particular mode that focused on signing only valid page joins? BIP 78.
Yeah. There was a limitation on that. I can't remember what was it.
So just related to page joins, it's not on the list, but just throw it in because it's relevant. PDK, page join dev kit, just got released, which works with native PSBTs. So that may be an interesting synergy use case for getting the cold card to work with it. That just dropped like this morning, so I didn't get it into the notes for the show.
Yeah, Craig, I think didn't you mention this to me before?
I'm not sure I did. I mean, it's just occurred to me. So with BIP 78, you have a whole list of things that when you need to sign it, you need to check all these different things on the PSBT. And if they are all true, then you're basically safe to sign. It kind of makes it so you don't have to check. So all of those checks, I think, could be done by the HSM, and then it could just sign, which could mean that you would be able to not need a hot wallet. You could basically have a cold card running in HSM, and that could sign all of the
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. I'm gonna connect you with Andre, who's now like essentially like the lead on the HSM, and yeah, I think we should make this happen.
It's exciting.
I want to see like CK Bunker being used more. Like, it's kind of nerdy, it's kind of out there, but like, it's the replacement for a $100,000 HSM server. Like for free.
I spent a couple of weeks with CK Bunker a couple months back, and it's a really amazing feature. I think very discussed, underutilized. Like, it's a very powerful stack to have, like you said, an HSM, but not having to spend $100,000 to deploy one. And for the page join integration, I imagine the logic should be relatively straightforward in that you're just making sure that you're, on net, you're not decreasing your total balance. You're just, taking some of your other UTXOs and you're sending back to yourself. Right, you can do that as a contained, like, logic gate, I imagine.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'll have to think it through. This is just an idea that I had today without actually going through and doing the research on it. But I would imagine that there's a way that it can be done. Yeah. Perhaps we'll have to get Mr. Dan Gold involved.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't need any weird signing, like different signing kind of feature, it should already work out of the box. If we do need, I mean, we can always like tweak it and add to the APIs, right? And yeah, I feel like once we have something like Sparrow docking to CK Bunker or integrated CK Bunker APIs or something like that, I think that this kind of like, so people don't need an extra UI thing happening, like the CK Bunker UI. They can use like Sparrow or just for specific APIs, not for everything. I think people are going to use it. It's too much to ask, I think, for people to use CK Bunker, like the actual script that runs the local web server and stuff. That's why I was curious to see if Craig makes some advancements in integrating with Sparrow.
Well, I'm currently waiting on you, actually, your team.
Oh, so there you go.
There you go.
I had a question about what's the current throughput like on the MK4 for C Bunker, like in terms of sort of numbers of transactions you can sign at a given time or bandwidth.
I mean, I think with Mark IV, it's essentially like almost the full 2 megabytes of like Bitcoin's network limit.
Oh, okay. Oh,
so
nice.
I don't think it matters anymore. Yeah, like
oh, sweet.
It's going to be a little shy of that, right? Because like there is some extra data that goes, and like there's some leakage there of efficiency on like, but we're close to like being like quite close to what the Bitcoin network itself uses as a limit, which is about 2 megabytes.
But if you're sending PSBTs, they're a lot bigger.
Yes, that
okay.
shouldn't. I'm sure there is a limit.
Yeah.
But like, like I can't like. I think you need to test it out, because I think you also matter like what kind of transactions they are and like how they're being signed, and it's not going to be as simple as a megabyte limit, I think, because you're going to definitely bump into probably some edge cases. But I think it's worth testing. Like, you can let us know, because maybe we can find some efficiencies and sort of like just tweak it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I mean, I've been, one of the things that is like, I think is sort of a gap in the enterprise market is this like Bitcoin HSM that sort of is like data center ready. And I mean, theoretically, with ZK Bunker, you can hook it up to a server and use it as like an HSM for a hot wallet or something like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, way back in the day, that's what we did for CoinKite.com when it was like the backend stuff, right? Like, and we were going to sell to Big O the HSM, the HSMs we made way back, the servers, but then we couldn't find the right deal. But we've always wanted to make a Bitcoin server, but the market is not ready to buy one. It's like it's not cheap to make the stuff right?
Yeah.
And it's also not simple, because we don't want to just have a secure enclave and let people just run whatever the fuck they want, because that's how they're going to get robbed. So, like, it's a weird balance. The market is not quite there yet, but, we can learn all the lessons we need to learn with CK Bunker and hopefully just repackage that as a server, because we can maybe even make a PCI board, right? Like,
yeah,
with a cold card board on it, and see how it goes later on. We'll see. Let's see how people play with it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. XOR seed save, that's just you being able to save one of the XOR, the seed XOR legs, right? Like one of the parts as your seed, so you can deposit money and you can like maybe spend money, so you have like a robber's money on one of the seed XOR parts. So it's truly plausible deniable, but you can actually do the operation on the cold card. All right. The other housekeeping thing here is the censorship rant. Damus versus Apple saga. This is like really annoying. It's classic Apple. They are going to do this every single time that there is something that they don't understand or that could hurt their bottom line, or both. They do make the best hardware, so it's very hard to switch. Like, it might not be a shared opinion, but Android is shit. And it is very hard to change. I mean, Damus had to take out the Zaps, or the Zaps as they were, to stay in the store. But, like just the way Apple removed the Bitcoin wallets in 2014, they had to turn around. They're going to do the same. It's a matter of time. I'm pretty optimist on this. It's like you can't keep technology out. And if you do, then eventually you're going to get some antitrust shit. You're going to like... they're going to have to eventually probably open the store anyways in Europe. So I think Apple's iron hand on the walled garden is the days counted. I mean, I like the walled garden for the iPhone. I do find that like I have to think less about like the stuff that goes in, and I don't have to worry as much because, the apps are tested and they're not robbing me somehow. But, that comes with no freedom, right? I don't know. How you guys feel about this?
I mean, I have some firsthand experience because at River, we have an iOS app. And so, it's interesting. It's like kind of a Sisyphean sort of nightmare sometimes, because you basically you get different reviewers all the time of the app. And it's like every 6 months, they're like, are you allowed to engage in virtual currency transmission? Like, we've reviewed your app. You need to prove to us. And it's just like, like we have to keep proving the same thing to different people at Apple. It's just like the most like
pretty annoying,
frustrating thing. And so it'll take like an extra 2 weeks to get like a new release approved just randomly, like just, you know, every now and then some minor update to the app like requires like legal, you know, work. It's just like a constant headache. And I think Apple is right now, I have a hunch, like internally, someone has told people to take a closer look at these apps. And so I think what's happening right now is people paying especially close attention to cryptocurrency apps. And that's probably what precipitated this.
Yeah, it's, you know, and all they have to do is change a policy, and then like all the reviewers, the lemmings that work in the review department get confused, and you know, it's new stuff, right? And they have a censorship system for the walled garden for many reasons. That is security, that is like their moat on profit and stuff. So it's a growing pains, but I think it's, you know, it's just going to take some time.
I think the interesting green shoots, depending on the app in the context, progressive web apps are fun. I think like Damus is a good example where you're not storing large amounts of money. At worst, it's your social identity, right? And you can maybe live with information not be stored in a secure enclave of the phone, but it allows you to be able to push this content and have developers have a direct link to their end users that are going to be consuming the content. And it's just kind of the, you know, the enablement of Bitcoin tools between BDK and LDK that can all get compiled into WASM. Like that's what the Mutiny guys are doing and crushing at, right? They can just push a Bitcoin app, a full wallet, Lightning wallet into any browser that's using iOS, and they don't have to ask for permission. And when they want to do feature updates, they don't have to go through a review process. They just ship the code, and since it all compiles in the browser with WebAssembly, like it's just a great way to give the power back to the people in the right context, right? I wouldn't store large sums of money in a PWA, but it's a handy tool to have.
I think the thing that's missing is we need a clever way of checking the signature on the package that is running on the browser, right? The PWA package. We need like a clever way of checking the signature on that, like on that binary, right? Well, it's not really a binary. It gets compiled on the browser on the fly, right? But still, like we need a way of just checking those bytes somehow, right? So we know it's running on the browser. That's my only fear with that is like, you know, the lack of ways of verifying the software.
Yeah, it's hard you can't sign ahead of time because it's compiling in the browser. So you can't sign the payload ahead of time, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a browser, which is never going to be the best.
It's never going to be secure.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if somebody out there eventually creates a browser that's like has like less features, but the feature that it does have is maybe it has like the say SHA-SUM for the packages that are going to get loaded, and it has like better segregation of things. I don't know. It's just specialized in loading PWAs, and it doesn't even let you go on the normal internet. So like there's less issues across domain attacks and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble really is that just the modern browser these days is such an incredible piece of software. It needs to do so much that, and of course, if you're writing a progressive web app, you want to have access to the modern features that, you know, and that just means you have to bring in an incredible amount of stuff. I mean, it's
millions and millions of lines of code.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever worked with a framework that has tried to build a browser in, and Java has one, it's a really shit browser. But if you've ever even just had a look at that, it's this massive piece of code. Now, luckily with Sparrow, I just get to take it out. It's not part of Sparrow in any way, but you just get an appreciation for how complex a browser is. It's just this massive pile of code, and a lot of it is very, I don't know, the word poorly defined comes to mind because it has to handle such a wide variety of kind of loosely defined inputs.
Yep, it's you know, the browser is hell. You know, I didn't want to talk initially because I wasn't sure if it was like maybe just me who missed it, but it seems like everybody missed it.
The Ledger Donjon guys for the firmware extraction for the Jade, right, on the ESP32 boards.
Like, that's like from January, but I only saw it now.
Yeah, I just saw it because Staticus tweeted about it. Then I saw it. Yeah, that's the only reason why I saw it. Yeah, I totally slipped me.
It's like, I've been saying this forever. Like, ESP32 is like unusable platform for security devices, right? The way to get around this is by using a cloud pin server, which that could be gone around by a state actor just asking them for that pin blob, and then there is no they can brute force the pins if they take it from the server, because there is no way for you to slow down the pin attempts, right? It's just a blob.
As far as I know, yeah.
So anyways, I think like Jade is a very cool device. It's a great, cool device for some multi-sig uses. I really, really don't think is a good device for single sig because of the platform that it uses. Same way I feel about like Trezor too. Like it's just like it's an unsecure hardware device, and it's amazing because the cost is like super low, right? It has a camera, it can do all these cool things. I think it's a very interesting project.
Yep.
Just
low price point. It's cheap.
Yeah, I just feel like projects need to like find a niche that like respects the trade-offs that they're making, right? Like it's not just for everybody for everything, right? And anyway, so essentially what they're doing there on that article, I didn't fully read it yet. I assume is essentially they can just run arbitrary code, because like we looked at the Jade and very easy to probe memory, very easy to run arbitrary stuff on RAM. It's not Jade itself, it's just a platform limitation.
Well, they're able to decrypt the firmware, which contains private public key information that's used to communicate to Blockstream server.
Yep.
That's what they're saying.
There you go.
And I think to give the other side, only because he's not here, Rich, who like helps project manage and like oversee the Jade stuff, says that you could also use a seed QR, similar to like a seed signer, where you just import it, and then when you turn off the device, it doesn't maintain that data in the firmware, to have some way of trade-off. Yeah.
So that's really terrible. Like, again, an anti-pattern, right? Like, you shouldn't have your private keys exposed around you in your daily life. They should be under a mountain somewhere, right? Like, the reason why you have a hardware wallet is so that your seed is not exposed on your desk.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're inviting violence into your life, right? Like, there's a reason for people to come get it from your house because it's unencrypted, right? So again, it's one of those things where like the trade-offs should not be presented as a solution for people to do everything, right? So anyways, I just hope that people start using these devices that have different kinds of trade-offs differently. Like they respect the trade-offs and use it in a pattern that like aligns with that.
Yeah, it's still very early, and I think people are trying different things, and the trade-offs are not yet well understood. But this is the way it needs to grow.
BIP 39 was what, like 2014? So we're not even 10 years in and trying to understand keeping 1224 words secret and like what's the best way of doing that and all the trade-offs. It's younger than Bitcoin.
Yep. Well, I mean, I think the main thing is like anything is hackable, right? Like given infinite resources, infinite samples, and infinite budgets, anything is hackable. They're going to get into your cold card eventually, right? The key here is how much does it cost to do that? And what's the risk of destroying the sample? So essentially you're just increasing cost, time, and failure rate, right? That's the goal. And that's why you have to keep on updating the hardware and trying different things, right? Now, with like platforms that are known to have no security, right? Like, even the some ESP32 platforms models, they will have like some like secure enclaves and things for you to store things, but it's fully hackable, like cheap, easy, like get in kind of thing, right? That platform that Jade uses like was designed for you to make like toys, for you to make like, it's a Chinese platform that's like ultra cheap in a single chip. And like, it's probably fully backdoored by MediaTek, who makes some of those chips. Like, I can't imagine it wouldn't be, right? This is not FUD. It's just, it's a chip. Like, you can't trust it. Like, I mean, we don't trust the secure elements that we use. Like, like it just assume is owned, right? Assume is backdoored. So I really, really wish the marketing departments of all the hardware wallets would be a little bit more upfront about the trade-offs that they're making, like, and like the vulnerability that they're exposing their users to, right? Like, it's a shame that like we can't have that. I get it. I mean, I want to like say all kinds of things about COLDCARD too, but like, there is limits to what the hardware can do, especially for $100, $200, right? I mean, it's anyways.
Yeah, and I think going back to what we were saying earlier, the pain points are really around key management and losing keys rather than the sort of exploits. I mean, that's where most of the pain is these days.
Yep.
That's just the truth of it.
Agreed. I'm a big fan of Michael Flaxman's 10x security guide, multi-vendor, multi-sig. If you're going to try and touch different things, like I like playing around with that and just have all these trade-offs openly there and don't put all your eggs in one single basket, one single kit.
I really like his setup. I just don't like the part of the custom derivation paths and other things that he has in there. It adds a bit more complexity. But that's just like, security people. You ask 10 security people what they think about something, they're all going to come with 11 different answers, right? Like,
yeah, that's just for his blinded XPubs, right? You can get random derivation paths and stuff. I think it's separate from the 10x security guide, but
okay.
But anyway, yeah, no, it's hopefully descriptors fix a lot of that derivation path stuff, because if you just keep a physical backup that's part and stored, you have one go-to file.
I mean, what we need to do really is de-risk keys, right? So like that's what Miniscript and like more complex multi-sig setup, Frost really does that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, listen to the Frost episode is worth it.
I'd love
like,
yeah, Jesse does great work on that.
Yeah, it's like the idea of de-risking the keys themselves, like we'll give some breathing room to the hardware wallets, right? So then you can use a hardware wallet that is not that physically secure, right? Because that key can only do so much in terms of the threshold that's signing. We're going to get there.
Yeah.
It's early. So, all right, let's start with the software updates and releases. All right, ColdCard 5.1.3, new feature, batch sign, PSBTs, advanced tools, file management, batch sign. It's a very useful feature if you have multiple PSBTs. Say, for example, you're moving wallets and you don't want to consolidate all into a single transaction. You want to do like 50 different transactions to map old UTXO to new UTXO kind of thing. You can just load those PSBTs and just go yes kind of thing instead of having to load each. We have a privacy feature that we're working on that will leverage this. It's still in the works. So, and because privacy features normally come with some drama, I'm gonna not sort of get into the details until we're certain we wanna do some stuff there. Enhancement: change key origin information export in multisig address.csv to match BIP 0308. Enhancement: address Explorer UX cosmetics now with arrows and dots, and deposit mode being worked on. I'm pretty excited about deposit mode. I really want that to happen.
What's deposit mode? I
want to have a code card that only has the XPub on it, so I can keep it on my desk, and not in across the ocean in some safe deposit box kind of thing, so that I can check addresses without having the private key at risk.
That's great.
Yeah, pretty excited about that because the XPub want to be as protective as we are with the XPriv. Because we want to make sure it's not compromised so that when you check addresses, the addresses are properly true, right? So anyways, trust nothing. Cold card colors, there's the gold and the glow cubby. And there's going to be more colors coming too. I'm going color crazy. Edge version 6.1.0x. Miniscript and mini tapscript support. Tapscript up to 8 leaves, taproot spending, signing, multisig, BIP 129, Bitcoin secure multisig setup, so BSMS. So for the people that don't know, the Edge version is essentially a dev version. You shouldn't be using this if you're not an advanced person. It's signed as well, so you can choose the normal release that is for everybody, and then there is the Edge release, which is for people that want to experiment with stuff that is new, that we're still not super comfortable yet putting on the main release for everybody else. So all the Miniscript influencers now have a device to sign.
I spent the timing was really good. My shipment of all of these colored cold cards arrived yesterday, and then I spent probably 45 minutes flashing all of them. And so it's really interesting. So maybe just take one step back and just talk about what is Miniscript.
Go for it.
Yeah, just
Shield. Miniscript influencer.
Well, I'll keep it at a high level to not get too lost in the weeds, because there's definitely plenty of weeds to get lost in. But it was a project out of the Blockstream team in 2018 or so, with Peter Will and Andrew Polstra and Sanket really leading the charge. And the whole mission was everyone that uses Bitcoin predominantly uses it in a very straightforward form of either a single sig or a multi-sig. And the reason why you do that is because you have a very strict sense of knowing how to interface with those signature schemes. And there's not many moving parts. Opcheck multi-sig just looks at the XPubs and looks at the signatures and checks everything's fine. There are other things you can do in Bitcoin script, though. The problem is if you're going to start arbitrarily throwing together Bitcoin scripts and locking your money behind these pay-to-witness script hashes or pay-to-script hashes, you could permanently lock your money, sometimes not even if you make a mistake that you were expecting.
Mini-script bolt accidents are going to be a thing.
Yeah, Odell's already claimed that he wants to lose all of his Bitcoin in a mini-script accident. So the whole mission of mini-script, though, was let's take the 256 opcodes that exist in Bitcoin and let's skinny it down to 20. And if we can set certain script structures around them, we can treat them like Lego bricks, and you can have more involved ways of securing your Bitcoin. So a very straightforward, even before I go into the examples, there's 3 tools. Signatures, we all know and love. A time lock, which can be a relative time lock or an absolute time lock. And you also can pick either clock wall time, like actual time on a clock, or block height. And then you also can do hash lock. So you can reveal a pre-image and it allows you to be able to use that almost like a password to open up spending conditions. So a very straightforward example of, I think, maybe something in a couple of years people would think about using is, let's say you have instead of a 2 of 3 multi-sig, you can have a 3 of 3 multi-sig, but then if the funds haven't moved in 6 months, it becomes a 2 of 3. And then if the funds haven't moved in a year and a half, it can become a 1 of 3, right? So adding these like disaster recovery layers embedded in Bitcoin script that allows you to kind of really make Bitcoin more programmable money, right? And that's just one example of how you can leverage this. It's really a very open-ended tool. You can do really interesting things like my 2 of 3 plus your 2 of 3, and that's not a 4 of 6. You specifically can have keys like what we're using them for in AnchorWatch is this idea of a key hierarchy. So you can require a certain key in a 2 of 3 or a 3 of 5 must sign. And that seniority can add governance checks and making sure that there isn't counterparties running off with funds. Another one is just having optional spending conditions, right? Like you can have, after a certain amount of time has passed, you can enable other spending conditions that have unlocked.
I can't remember. Is it possible to do amount of
No.
sats? Yeah, that's one thing that's such a shame that was not possible.
It's a limitation of Bitcoin script. Bitcoin script does not make a reference to the amount of money in the UTXO. Right. Can you unlock this UTXO or not, right? So COLDCARD added support, I think a week ago today, and this is Wednesday. And I waited for my COLDCARDs drive. I only had one MK4 to test with, so I was a little slow on the dev cycle. But then we integrated the mini script feature, and it's fun and live to be testing around with right now. So that's at a very high level, the mini script feature. The 2 things that are really important is the way COLDCARD integrates with it is it uses output descriptors and PSBTs. And since they're very generalized standards, we didn't have to re-architect our entire backend to add the COLDCARD into it because previously we only had Ledger. But since you're using base primitives like output descriptors and PSBTs, we were able to kind of click it into our existing infrastructure. Very straightforward.
Well, that's cool. Is there more support for output descriptors for mini-script aside from Ledger?
You mean like other devices that are supporting mini-scripts?
Yeah, PSBT with output descriptors.
So Spectre DIY, which is the same firmware, the same software backend that SeedSigner uses. I've seen someone do a quick hack together to show that it works that way. The ones I've seen videos of, they haven't released yet, is the Bitbox 02, which I haven't seen if it actually uses PSBTs and output descriptors, but they tweeted a video out about it. And the Jade, which I now know uses output descriptors and PSBTs. So it seems like this has been a really good opportunity. And Ledger started it when they upgraded their firmware last year. They forced you to have to use output descriptors. So it kind of forced everyone to start supporting output descriptors. And that's been great because now we have a baseline interoperable way of having devices talk to each other across different software suites and signing devices that now can just have all that information there.
Yeah, the next thing I want to see is signed, detached signatures on everything.
I love that. Yeah.
I want to see signed PSBTs and signed output descriptors, sign all the things.
I've noticed that the COLDCARD does that. I was using it in virtual disk mode yesterday, and every time I spit out a signature, it gave me a detached signature with it. It was just great to see the PSBTs.
Craig, have you thought about maybe putting a checkbox that like you don't accept unsigned PSBTs? So like if there is no detached signature as part of the upload, you don't accept it?
It's an interesting thought. The one trouble with these detached signatures is I'm finding that I'm getting users coming to me confused. What is this thing? Which file is which? They don't really know. It's so I do worry a little bit about adding a second file, because you obviously need to upload that file as well. Then
no, it would have to be a setting for people who care about like the paranoia level, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely worth thinking about if there's an easy way to do it. It should be really easy.
Because see, what I was thinking was, so for example, when you export a list of addresses, right? Say you want to create a whitelist of addresses, right? You could export that list, and Sparrow could load that list, right? Or double check the list against itself, because it's a signed list that has a detached signature there. That's like ultra powerful, right? Like it becomes very hard for a man-in-the-middle attack there, where there's some virus on the computer or something that's trying to make Sparrow show a different address.
Yeah, I think it actually makes a lot of sense, because I could just basically look in the same folder that the PSBT was in for that detached signature. And if it's a cold card and if the file's there, then we can check it. And if there's anything wrong, then we can just show an error to the user. There's no particular reason why that can't be enabled for everyone.
Yep. We created a little website. It's checkmsg.org. It's like a little Bitcoin message verifier, so you can check those signature files.
Nice.
All right, so Sparrow version 1.7.7. If only we had the maker of that project to read the notes.
I'll go and call him. No, it was this particular release is just a whole lot of different features. There was sort of a general idea to focus on the higher fee rate that we found ourselves in these days, and kind of try and improve various features around that. So it starts off with improving the mempool fee rates chart, which is a histogram chart, which we kind of all know from mempool.space. It's that chart that shows you all the different amounts of the transactions at different fee rates, and that kind of gives you an idea of where you're going to estimate your fees at. You can see whether things are coming down on the sort of downtrend, whether things are going up. It's a useful tool in the toolbox. I wouldn't say it's the only thing that you should use when trying to estimate fees. There are other different things you should think about, but it certainly is a useful one, and I've always liked the fact that it was there and sort of available within the wallet. So with this release, it's basically just matching the colors to the mempool.space so that it's what everyone's kind of familiar with. It's really being able to offer over a longer time frame. So you can, if you've been running the wallet for a while, you can click on that little chart. It will expand into a bigger version of itself. And then there's a little 2-hour, which is currently what it shows, or a 24-hour. And if you've been running the wallet for a while, you've got 24 hours worth of data that you can show. So it might just be able to save you from going to mempool.space on that sort of time, and you can see what's going on. That's the sort of one side of things on the fees. The other side is being able to add additional inputs to an RBF transaction as you are kind of increasing the fee rate. So when the fee rates get really high, it might be that the additional UTXO that Sparrow adds when you click the sort of increase fee button isn't enough, and you actually need to add more just to increase that fee. So this allows you to do it, and as you're increasing that fee slider, it allows additional UTXOs to join and then to basically support the fee rate that you're trying to create.
Doesn't that become like a double knapsack problem there?
In this case, it's actually pretty simple because we can basically see what the amount that is that we need to kind of use. It's not particularly advanced at this stage. It's just choosing a random UTXO, but you can always hover over them in the transaction diagram and then just sort of exclude them one by one. If it includes one that you don't particularly want to spend, you can just hover over it, click the little X, and it will vanish and it won't come back. So it's kind of an easy way for you to be able to get over that particular issue if the fee rates are just going up very, very fast. Then there's a bunch of things around border wallets. So Border wallets, again, are just a way to be able to memorize a seed in an easier way. So you can basically think about it as a pattern, which is on a table or sort of a grid. And all you have to do is memorize that pattern, which human beings find much more easy than trying to memorize 12 words. So long as you kind of do that, you can recreate that, so long as you have the grid. And the grid is not something you need to keep particularly secret. You can, put it on a flash drive or whatever, and if someone finds it, all they find is a grid with a whole lot of words on it. So it's a useful tool if you can't take a hardware wallet or your computer or whatever across, for example, a border. If you have that kind of limitation, then this is a useful tool. And this particular release just added a few features here to make it kind of more bulletproof in terms of its UX. Then we had the addition of the spendable property on BIP 329 exports, and those are basically wallet label exports. But there's this kind of additional thing that wallets store, which is whether a UTXO is frozen or not, whether it can be spent. And it's a kind of a weird piece of extra data that is it doesn't really fit well with anything else, and that's kind of why it's been added. And in fact, this was merged this week into the BIP. So you now have this additional field which you can have on any UTXO, any sort of output label. You can now say whether that UTXO is spendable or not, and then that will then be able to retain that state. So should you then export and then import, you don't lose that state. And that's quite a nice thing for people who have flagged their wallet. Maybe they've flagged a whole lot of dust that they don't want to have, spent, or all kinds of reasons that you might want to freeze things.
Craig, do you know if Electrum is integrating BIP 329 for the labels?
I don't know. I haven't checked. I'm sure that one could do so easily enough. Just look on their repo, but I haven't had a look. No,
man, I really wish there was a self-run server to synchronize like BIP, all these labels.
Have you heard of Labelbase before?
Yes, the guy is working on it. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I think that it's a really great idea. What I'm looking for, and I believe he's working on this, is the ability to run it yourself.
Yes, that has to happen.
Because you obviously don't want to be sending your labels along with your UTXOs and your TXIDs off to some central server.
Just send it straight to chain analysis so they get some context on my transaction.
For sure. So, there is that. But it looks like it's been well built. It's got encryption at rest. I think that it's a decent job. He fully understands all of the concerns people will have, and he's working towards a self-hosted version. So I'm looking forward to that. And Sparrow may well have a way to integrate against that in the future. Moving on, we've just got a bunch of stuff around QRs. It's actually a lot of it was to support the work that Seedhammer is doing. So they have this way to be able to, for example, stamp an output descriptor QR, which is not a simple thing to do. And then this was just basically some work to be able to read different kinds of QRs that they make. So that's a few features in there for that. Then we've got a few features around the tap signer. So I didn't actually know this, but I learned a little while ago that Nunchuk uses, or occasionally uses, I should say, non-standard derivation paths with the tap signer. So it was actually required for me to build a custom derivation path import so that you could use your Nunchuk wallet on Sparrow. So that's in there. And a few other things which, to make it kind of easier to back up the tap sign, and there's now a separate button. Before you had to kind of change your PIN, but now you can just click a button. And that's kind of it. There's a long list of other smaller things. The one that I can recall at the top of my head is if you are running a wallet, like a very large wallet with high address reuse, Sparrow would really bog down, get very slow. And then that was just a bottleneck, which I managed to find. So I found that, those Sparrow users who are maybe in a sort of exchange have found that this particular version will work much better for them, because there tends to be in an exchange a lot of address reuse.
It's quite annoying. Like some exchanges or brokerages or like desks, they force you to essentially reuse addresses or to do compliance or whatever, and some of them are just like poor tech, and then like, or you have to give them a whitelist, and it's quite annoying.
Yeah, and I mean they've I've seen wallets now which have literally hundreds of transactions on one address. So it's unless you have focused on that particular use case, perhaps it's at any rate this new version will handle that much better. And then the last thing I'll mention is basically that little histogram that I mentioned earlier. If you connect it to Bitcoin Core, or perhaps I should say there was a PR on the Bitcoin Core repo to allow Bitcoin Core to produce the kind of data, the sort of fee histogram data required to produce that chart. Unfortunately, that PR hasn't been merged, so what we have to do is basically download all of the mempool kind of sort of entries, which is data about every single transaction in the mempool, and then construct the chart ourselves. And it turns out that if you make this call, which is called get raw mempool true, the true being for verbose, then it will actually crash. It will cause the kernel to kill Bitcoin Core on a computer with 4 gigs of RAM or less. So, and that happens pretty much reliably. So I didn't actually know about this. I'm not sure if anyone did. And that has now been taken out with the new version. So Sparrow now will no longer crash Bitcoin Core on these kind of Raspberry Pis and these sort of low RAM servers that you might be using.
Interesting. How many times do you have to hammer a piece of metal to get an output descriptor? That seems like a lot. That's a bicep. That's arm day for you right there.
Well, I believe they actually have a sort of machine that does it.
Yeah, it's
okay.
There's a solenoid sort of or something like that just goes.
Oh, nice.
Like on a XY sort of bed, gantry. It's a cool little fun project.
Interesting. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm very focused on output descriptors because especially once you leave like 2 of 3, 3 of 5, you need to know all that data. So I'll have to give that project a look.
That's the part that I don't like about output descriptors, that you have to have a backup of it that's proper, or you're kind of screwed. So anyways, that's something to keep in mind. All right. Thanks, Craig, for keep on pushing this.
Yeah, thanks, man.
A shop of one. Love it. Trident Wallet. Institutional grade open source Bitcoin wallet version 0.1. Rob, do you want to read your notes?
Yeah, 0.1 was just because we haven't tagged a version yet. The code's not out yet for review, but the whole premise here was kind of scratching my own itch for being able to offer insurance solutions around Bitcoin. And I mean, we've been working on this now for a little over a year with 2 main tracks, getting the insurance operations side stood up and the tech side. So I'll just stay focused on the tech side for this audience. The whole crux of this was there weren't any wallets that supported Miniscript anywhere in any real capacity. When I first started working on this, Ledger didn't even merge it into their main firmware yet. And, Bitcoin Core just added support in version 25, which I think you guys covered last episode of Bitcoin.review for signing support, right? So it was very, 6 months ago, it was very little support and just started hacking away. We use our entire backend as Bitcoin Dev Kit. Shout out to Steve Myers and Alikos, Flinny and Daniela and Thunderbiscuit and the whole crew that maintain that project over there. But the punchline is that we want to be able to leverage Miniscript for more involved security solutions so that we can have custody arrangements that what we call negative control. So at no point, even if we got totally compromised, all of our seed phrases got hacked everywhere. We never could actually move money by ourselves unilaterally. This is kind of championing an idea of multiple institutions holding key information, as opposed to, but when we started the company, FTX was still in business, Celsius was still in business, Prime Trust was still in business. Like there was a long list of people who all thought that, they had decent arrangements, but that's kind of what we've been building though, is a more kind of leaning on the edge of this Bitcoin security set and design set to offer more interesting arrangements. And that's also going to include like retail versions that don't involve insurance at all, which would be stuff like I mentioned before, like a degrading multi-sig that's 3 of 5, then 2 of 5, then 1 of 5, right? I think the real way Miniscript in general is going to have adoption at any reasonable scale is having set templates that are going to be reviewed by many players and kind of having consensus, because the templates achieve a couple things. One, it helps signing devices kind of condense the amount of information they need to share on screen if you know it's within a certain constraint. Otherwise, you need to display the entire output descriptor in all of the XPubs, which is a UX nightmare. Additionally, it helps inter-wallet interoperability support, so you're never gated into one single wallet. And third, just understanding like, hey, we know that these script templates have been reviewed and peer reviewed multiple times, so there aren't any weird corner cases in Bitcoin script accidentally making your money disappear. So I think that's just really important also for consumer confidence. So what we've built basically to scratch our own itch is just an open dev playground to start like clicking things together and making arbitrary Bitcoin scripts so we can do testing. Craig, I think I showed you a demo in Miami. MBK, I showed you one back at Bitcoin Park a couple months ago. But the whole idea is just taking if you want to see an example of this, Bitcoin Dev Kit Playground. It's like a drag and drop, what you see is what you get, MIT Scratch, where you can start doing these custom scripts, hit compile, and it turns into an output descriptor. What we did was we used BDK and we took one level of abstraction higher than that to things like a layer. So you have a spending layer that has multiple spending conditions that may or may not optionally be gated behind, like a time lock, right? And that's what we've started doing. And it's been really interesting developing through it, because I think there's a couple of things to start thinking about. One, derivation paths. It becomes an interesting thing. One, with output descriptors, derivation paths are less of an important thing to be like super scrutinizing, because if you have the output descriptor, it has the derivation path information in the output descriptor. That's kind of part of it. The other thing too is just as a quirk, the way miniscript works, if you're using pay-to-witness script hash, when you provide a signature for a pay-to-witness script hash transaction, you're signing the entire transaction. So if you were to have this kind of construction where you say it's a 3 of 3, and then after 6 months it becomes a 2 of 3, and then another 6 months becomes a 1 of 3, you have maybe one device like a cold card as one of those 3 keys in each of those spending branches. But since it's pay-to-witness script hash, you're revealing that all at once. And a constraint of miniscript because of this is you can't have the same identical public key in multiple places within a branch, because you can't actually control once you sign it. Oh, I meant to sign for branch A, not branch B. So the way we get around this right now, and I say I think the other people that are using this are the Wizard Sardine guys with their Liana wallet, is we use different derivation paths for the different kind of things. What I use for the ledger is I take different hardened account paths for the different, like branch A is account 1 and branch B is account 2, which is not like ideal, but like here's the opportunity though, is that since like there aren't a lot of players playing with like this at the moment, we can, among the first early movers, just kind of figure out what are the best standard ways of kind of scratching this itch. And then we can just set good security practices before anyone else is jumping in and trying to develop on top of this, because otherwise, I want to avoid it, what we kind of have right now for legacy multisig, where like everyone has different opinions and different derivation paths, and then you have to maintain wallet recovery, like stuff and like explain all the different derivation paths. I just love for it to even, maybe not, it doesn't have to be a BIP or maybe a slip, I don't know, but like some sort of like, hey, if you're going to use a wallet and a miniscript output descriptor, here's the general canonical ruling, and then we all can just agree on that before there's 10, 20 people that are building on top of it.
Alex, are you guys looking at to like sort of, because you guys are an institution and you guys have to custody Bitcoin in large sums, like are you guys looking? I don't know how much you want to talk in public about this kind of stuff, but
so we don't reveal a whole lot, but we do reveal we do multi-sig. So my take to date has been maximal simplicity with redundancy, and for me, like sort of at an institutional level, like seeing like just looking at what happened at Fireblocks, like complexity is sort of the root of all evil.
Drug brain.
It actually is. Like for me, for example, like my hot take is like I'm actually a fan of address reuse, because I know 100% the keys that I have can sign those addresses. Like I actually will never send Bitcoin to an address I haven't spent a little bit from.
Yes.
And I actually just did an interesting poll on Twitter the other day. I asked that if you've ever lost coins, did you lose them because you had your keys compromised or because you lost access to them? And it was like 10-1 lost access to them. And so for that reason, we're not looking at sort of like adding more sort of complexity to like the rule set on chain for our cold storage. We're mostly focused on looking at how we can just continually improve the security of the keys, the redundancy, like creating like very secure backup methodologies to protect against lots of different failure modes, and kind of tooling at sort of at the protocol level is we're pretty happy with multisig. I'm very interested in Frost because I think Frost opens up a whole new world of potential opportunities for institutions, specifically institutions that need to keep addresses around because people might keep depositing to them but need to change signer sets. So, and I know you had an episode about that a few weeks ago, which I thought was very interesting. So yeah, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we should do another episode on Miniscript or something because, it's like a whole other rabbit hole that needs to be explored.
Yeah, it is. And I definitely respect Grugbrain. And I think it's kind of very early days. Like COLDCARD just added Miniscript support a week ago. So I think it's going to take time to kind of iron out a lot of these things, have well-vetted templates to even begin approaching this stuff. But you got to start somewhere. So that's why I'm kind of like trying to push that forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I mean, we're going to get there.
Totally. I think people will build some cool applications. I'm glad to see people working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Nunchuk. iOS version 1.9.27. Support for child pays for parents transactions. That's useful. Blockstream Green. Desktop version 1.2.2. Added pass hash of uncompressed firmware when updating Jade. Changed better error messages. CI process for signing for Windows. Improved ledger warning to select correct app on dashboard. Improved Jade serial port writing. I wish Blockstream Green supported PSBTs. That would make better.
Hoping the new version that's coming out of the Jade's going to support PSBTs. I don't know about Green though, but I'm really hoping that it had PSBT support.
Keeper version 1.0.6 directly send remix sats from Whirlpool to your multisig vault. Health check for citing devices. Optimize the list of whitelisted public server and improved error messaging pertaining to node connectivity.
I think that they also just released their Android version of the Whirlpool client in the last 24 hours or so. So that's really nice to see. More Whirlpool clients is always a good thing.
Nice. All right. Trezor version 23.6.1. CoinJoin candidate transactions. News suite guide structure for optimized navigation. Inyas UI for improved account public key display. Umbrel version 0.5.4. Reimagine App Store. Migration assistant feature enables transfer data from Raspberry Pi base Umbrel to the new Umbrel. Performance improvements. It's a pretty little desktop that they have now.
Yeah, so I mean, it's good to see that we are moving beyond the Raspberry Pi era. I think that's
Jesus Christ, please, right? I mean, Raspberry Pis are a shitcoin.
That's starting to fade. It's really nice to see all of these kind of node-in-a-box solutions coming out with decent hardware that you can buy. I have to actually run a Raspberry Pi. I'm looking at it right now, and it's really just not ideal. I mean, it's if you've ever run a node on something a little bit better, then you know the difference between running it on sort of a hobbyist experimental device. I'm sure NVK you could describe it better, but there's a big step up to be made when you get a decent computer.
Yeah, it's Raspberry Pis were never designed for what people use them for, right? I mean, they were designed to be a cheap computer for people in Africa who can't afford a computer. Like literally that was their marketing way back then. And then, people rightly wanted to use this full computer to do all kinds of cool stuff because it was so cheap. But it's like atrocious. And like they use Broadcom's CPU, which has a completely proprietary closed blob in it. So it's terrible platform for Bitcoin, unless people write their own firmware. Remember, what you're putting on the SD card is the OS. It's not the firmware. So it doesn't matter how amazing, secure your little OS version that is running on top of the firmware is, because the firmware is still closed source and is from Broadcom. So not good for Bitcoin. So let's use other platforms. There's a lot of better stuff out there. Right. Talking about that, StartOS version 0.3.4.3, improved TORQ reliability, experimental features, updated branding, bug fixes. StartOS, like their hardware is really cool. It's a Start 9 hardware. Floresta version 0.4.0, lightweight Bitcoin full node implementation written in Rust, powered by U3XO. Fix config file, parse your doc orthography, edit support for output descriptors, derive more addresses as we get transactions, improve address selection, update transaction view on broadcast. I have not used this project yet.
I actually have.
Cool.
I actually ran it for the first time this week, and you can basically think of, if you ever run EPS, the Chris Belcher's Electrum personal server before. It's this little Python script that basically you put your xpub into a config file, and then it will serve. Basically, it will be an Electrum server, but just for that xpub. And the big saving there is that you don't have to have a full node. And well, you don't have to have the full address index sitting behind that. So it's a kind of very lightweight way to do it. Floresta is actually even lighter weight because it uses U3XO to basically use a Merkle tree to effectively keep a hash of this sort of entire UTXO set. So it's a really lightweight way to do it. It's currently only on Signet, but I would encourage anyone who likes to play around with these things to give it a go. I was able to put my xpub in, and the thing had a running Electrum server for me in 20 minutes, I think. So it was pretty good, and that was from scratch, just from the sort of Genesis block. So we'll have to see how it works on mainnet. I'm not sure yet, but certainly it's a nice toy to play around with now.
Yeah, U3XO is interesting just as an optimization, right? And for those who aren't familiar with it, the whole reason why you run the Bitcoin software is so you can get a set of the UTXOs, right? The unspent transactions of the current state of the ledger. And because of that, you need to store that all in RAM because you need to be able to quickly access it, right, when it comes time for you to validate a new batch of transactions coming in with a new block. As Craig mentioned, though, U3XO is this way of using Merkle inclusion proof. So you don't have to store and persist the entire UTXO set. You can just maintain this hash, and then you can kind of walk your way up the Merkle tree and show that, a new transaction coming in is part of the original root, right? So I think it's a great optimization for lighter weight Bitcoin clients because it quickly becomes, if you're running a prune node, the thing that you start actually getting bottlenecked on in running software is that UTXO set that has to sit in RAM.
All right. 10101. That means 21. Version 1.0.20. This is a self-custodial on-chain and off-chain wallet with trading. Do not trigger DLC manager, periodic check twice, simplify maker binary, prefer unused addresses, remove share on Twitter button temporarily, use address cache, set background transaction priority to 24 blocks, improve error message trying to collab close LN with DLC channel, simplify deserialization of channel ID, stabilize key dependencies. Have anyone tried this project?
I have not. I'm just looking at it now. To read the site, it combines the power of self-custodial on-chain and off-chain wallet with the vast world of trading. But I can't say more.
Seems interesting.
Yeah. Rindell told me to go check it out, which is my nerd stamp of approval that it's worth spending the time to poke into it, but I have not had done it yet.
So it's 10.10.1.finance. Nice. I appreciate the domain there. Very cool. And it looks quite polished, like at least their marketing thing here. Oh, look, the app also looks quite decent too.
Oh, I think they were in the Wolf Accelerator.
Okay. Nice. Orange Peel app version 1.4.0, event creation, event management, redesign event tab, and you can now send zaps on the Orange Peel app. Orange Peel app is essentially a dating app for Bitcoiners to find friends. And now also organize events to find friends. It's a great little project. Peach version 0.2.9, update BDK RN, fund escrow from Peach Wallet, improve app startup time, Peach en français, feature events, meetups, French PM, no fees for a month. Cool. Alex, do you want to do your update now?
Sure. Yeah. We shipped a few things at River recently that might be of interest to listeners. On the consumer side, we shipped Bitcoin auto withdrawals, which is just an easier way to get sats into your cold storage. We offer a zero fee dollar cost averaging. So probably the most cost efficient way to go from dollars into sats on your cold card. And then on the Lightning side, we have a Lightning product for developers. It's a custodial Lightning API. We just shipped some cool new features there, including a all new sexy dashboard and a lot of LNURL support features, which have been heavily in demand. So kind of relevant to the Bolt 12 discussion. I know there's a whole sort of like philosophical discussion around LNURL. What we're seeing is it's what people want because it solves the problem, even though it's not the absolute perfect technical solution. And so we've been focused on making that easier for people. So yeah, those are our updates. Always working on some cool new things.
So, Alex, I'm curious to understand your auto withdrawal feature a little bit better. Is that just withdrawing to one address, or does it get multiple addresses?
One address right now. We've had some requests for other solutions. It is a philosophical thing where, and my stance to date is like taking an XPub and deriving addresses for people on the fly is scary for me. I hate sending Bitcoin to addresses where there hasn't been a proof of being able to sign for it.
What about a whitelist? Like a gigantic whitelist that is sent to you, PGP signed, and then you load it up. And
that's another option. And I would be comfortable. Like, I don't want to build a tool to generate a whitelist for somebody. But if, like, for example, you could export a cold card whitelist direct from the device and upload that to River, that's definitely something that I would actually feel comfortable supporting. It's just like wasn't sort of like, I think didn't need to block launching it. It's something we're evaluating.
Okay, just one kind of thought there. I haven't seen it yet, but this is really an ideal use case for BIP47. It's sort of the payments. I mean, it really, the sort of use case where you have multiple payments between two parties is ideal, because there the sort of cost of the notification transaction to set things up is kind of absorbed over multiple payments over a long period of time. If you upload a list of addresses, the issue you always have is not only, or even worse, an XPub is you kind of then are giving away so much information about your wallet that, that most Bitcoiners kind of shy away from that, and then they want to upload a small batch. Then that batch kind of runs out. Then you need to upload a second batch. All of that kind of PT is removed if you use the BIP47 approach. So I haven't seen it done, apart from Lincoln Pool, which I believe uses BIP47 to handle withdrawals from their mining pool or sort of payouts. I just think it's kind of underutilized for that particular use case. Of course, we don't yet have huge amount of wallets supporting BIP47, but it is growing, and it's one of those chicken and egg things, right? When the more wallets that support and the more exchanges that kind of use it, we could really see that technology take off. So anyway, just a thought.
Interesting. That's definitely something we've actually, it's funny, we've actually had more people ask for that than being able to upload like address batches and XPubs. Definitely something I'm going to investigate. What wallets do support receiving to paynims?
So right now we have Samurai Wallet, Sparrow Wallet, and Stack Wallet all support them. Cool. Those are the sort of three. And I believe Blue Wallet has it as well. I'm not sure if they've rolled it out completely yet. I would need to go and check that, but I know that it's built and in the sort of wallet. I'm just not sure exactly if they've rolled it out yet.
Very interesting. Are cold cards going to support paynims?
I don't know if there's any point in the hardware supporting?
Yeah, it's not really
a level above.
It's not a hardware thing.
It actually can't, right? Because what we actually are doing to create an address, you're basically using the private key and the public key and doing ECDH on it. So, I think it's possible. I mean, all things can be done, but it tends to be something because the sort of wallet needs to generate new sort of addresses on the fly. You'd almost need to have a cold card in HSM mode to kind of, be able to work that way.
Yeah. I don't like the pattern of hardware wallets generating deposit addresses. I think is an anti-pattern for like security and like insanity. I think the hardware wallet should just check the addresses that the wallets produce. So the client wallet make the addresses, right, in whatever script or whatever it wants to do, and the hardware wallet just goes and checks that address. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I think to generate addresses, you need big screen, you need FOT, you need that's your operational setup.
Interesting.
Right? The hardware wallet shouldn't be doing generation of anything. It's too hard to look. It's not. Yeah, it feels like an anti-pattern.
I mean, that was the bug that Ledger had with mini scripts, because they were deriving the script stack, and they were off by one for one of the opcodes, so you got an entirely different address. So like exactly to your point, like have something very specialized generate that's like we use BDK to generate all of our addresses, right? So. And then you have the big screen and everything, right? If the address, I guess you have to check though, right? Because like I was messing around with this yesterday with a cold card, is that I can export and get 250 receive and change addresses. And it's really thorough. It doesn't just show the address, it also shows the script pub key hash. It goes through the whole, like there's a lot of information in that cold card address dump, which is really handy. And then it also has a detached signature, so you can prove that it actually came from the cold card.
Interesting.
Yeah, but still yeah. So there is a reason, for example, we don't show addresses for multisig because we don't trust that we can generate those addresses safely for people to deposit. We just want to check that the address is real. So anyways, yeah. Any other updates, Alex? Or
I don't know if anything else relevant for this show. I mean, we're always working on cool new stuff. We do have some interesting technical Lightning work we're doing behind the scenes that I think we'll be ready to talk about later in the year. Sort of, I'll hint at sort of like non-custodial, sort of some custom software and some cool things we're working on. So I'll just tease that on this show, but not ready to talk about it.
Don't worry,
yet.
Nobody listens to the show. You can actually just tell us the whole thing and like nobody will know. We're like an hour and a half into the show. I mean, we already lost the 3 people who listen to it. We only really do this show so that we get to like just talk about shop and just, shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Also, Sam did a really good research paper, right, on Lightning and remittances too.
Yeah. We actually just launched a research paper, like 60-page research paper on Lightning and on Bitcoin and international payments, and just being really realistic and objective about what the state of the union there effectively. So that's another interesting piece worth checking out. And then, other than that, we have some cool features coming down the road for the brokerage product, working on limit orders. Always working on improving our Lightning functionality and the wallet functionality. We have an Android app coming as well, so stay tuned. Rodolfo, I share your views on Android. I'm not a huge Android fan, but we've been getting asked for this for years now. So finally acquiesced.
No, it's good. It's good to have both, right? I mean, it's like,
yes,
it's great. Like my hope is that Android becomes great. And then I don't have to say shit, and then I get to use it. Like, I just not sugarcoating it. I know that is the only option that like you can do your own stuff, but like, the hardware is still fully cucked too, and the carrier still can like, probably remote CRM there too. Like, even the folks from Graphene, like, like they're very honest on Twitter and like sort of like, we're still bound by the hardware on this, and like it's not the panacea that the privacy people like to talk about. It's the telcos do hold cell phones by the balls, and they're not gonna let it go. Like the only way we get like decentralized sort of like freedom phones is if we do them on like Wi-Fi only, for example. And it's just the nature of that. We're gonna get there. I am pretty hopeful that like we're gonna end up getting better devices and more freedom in that space as the time goes, and Wi-Fi is like everywhere. Anyways, Project Spotlight. Mnemonikey, deterministic backup and recovery of PGP keys using human readable phrases. Save your PGP key identity in the list. Oh yeah, I remember now this project. Somebody's trying to make it so that you can remap BIP39 to more English, like cohesive sentences and things. Not sure how I feel about this, but it's cool that people are doing it.
Readability is nice. I'll have to go give this a look because it's more data too for PGP key, right? Yeah, and then making it full sentences. I'll have to give it a look.
Runcitadel. Citadel OS is operating system of Umbrel. Okay, so they had a bunch of updates. We've already talked about their updates. BitcoinExplorer.org. The free, open source, easy to set up, easy to use, self-hosted Explorer. Remember BitcoinExplorer.com? Like that was it's the OG Explorer. It was really cool because they never had CSS. So it was all like proper, beautiful. The domain is gone. It's for sale. Boo. Anyways, it was nice. And there was a deposit, like a donation address at the bottom that I think had like over 100 BTC on it. But in those days it was worth nothing. So it's, anyways, kind of cool to see that name show up again. Tapsim. Tapsim is a simple to build and go for debugging Bitcoin TapScript transactions. Very cool. All right, Lightning. Software update, software releases. Alby version 2.1.0, the Shark Nebula. Add wallet page, add discovery page for Vita projects, add coincards.com, change wording to passcode, speed up injection of window objects, add window.alby method, new onboarding cards. Blink version 2.2.82, a bunch of updates as well. I'm gonna it's just too many updates, so I'm gonna just start making them a little shorter, unless you guys, there's anything here you guys want to.
Well, Blink was the Bitcoin Beach wallet, right? That's the Galoy guys. They rebranded. Yes. All right, that's what I thought. Just want to make sure. Cashew
0.12.1 nuts dynamic change output amounts. That's a Nut 8 update. Mint. Use the HTTPX library instead of requests asynchronous operations. A few other updates there. Wallet, huge performance increase. Multi-mint swap are now available in a nutshell. The use of nuts everywhere. It's so good.
I love it.
Nuts to you. Option to mint tokens and a bunch of other things. Mutiny Wallet updates. Added Send Max button for both on-chain and new channel openings. Beta warning dialog with helpful links. Zap now typically sends out under 10 seconds. In the pipeline, an in-app feedback forms, static channel backups, wallet recovery, authentication, and more. I love Mutiny Wallet. I've been playing with it a lot.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yes.
I just got access to it maybe a couple weeks ago, and it's a great user experience and just blows my mind. It's all in the browser. We talked about that earlier.
It is. Yeah. I mean, there's, again, it's like that feeling of there's funds on the browser, but at the same time, it's like, holy shit, you don't need anybody's permission store. You don't need hardware, anything. It just works, right? It's pretty impressive. mutiny-node version 0.3.13 sets the floor for a minimized transaction fee rate when negotiating channel on-chain fees. More, and then there is the version 0.3.10 and 0.3.12, a bunch of other changes too. Alex, you're a Lightning guy. Have you used their node?
Sorry, whose node?
Mutiny-node.
No, I haven't tried mutiny-node. Is it a from scratch implementation?
Don't know. I think it may be a fork of LND.
LDK. I think they're using LDK because LDK has all the Rust bindings, so they can kick it over to WASM and do all that stuff in the browser.
I haven't tried it. No, interesting.
You should check out some of their stuff. It's it really is next level Lightning stuff.
Yeah, I'll check it out. It all runs in the browser. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a progressive web app, so there's no app to download. You just click, go, and it's all in the browser. And it's a nice, like the progressive web app experience in Apple's very much, you wouldn't know it's not an app, like a web app. Like it feels the same.
Very cool. Huh.
Yeah, and there's also mutiny-node, which is their own signet. That's like amazing. Like all the new features and stuff that people want to play with seem to be working there well.
They launched a token.
Yeah. Eclair version 0.9.0. Dual funding Eclair is now up to date with the latest state of dual funding specification. Splicing prototype is out and Boltz 12 offers. This is really cool. These are two things that we've all been waiting forever, ever, and ever, and ever, and more 2 weeks. So it's nice to see splicing and Boltz 12 sort of happening.
Yeah, shout out to Dusty for grinding to get that done. I know he did it on the C Lightning side. And I'm a layer 1 boomer, but is this like the final, like, is this multiple implementations using Boltz 12 now? Like, is this live?
I don't know. I am a real man do it on chain kind of guy. So
all in the base layer.
Base layer boomer here.
Yeah, I know there's also a Lightning Dev Summit happening this week in New York. So there's a lot of spec alignment being done today and tomorrow on a number of topics. I think Boltz 12. I don't know what the status is in LND. It's definitely. I think the code is done. I don't know if it's actually shipped.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it's being reviewed, which is, as we all know, a long and arduous process. But Boltz 12 is many things, and it's probably coming in bits and pieces. I'm not sure exactly how much of it is under review at this time.
Yep.
For people that want to get a better idea, we did an episode with everybody about Boltz 12 is definitely there. Lightning, privacy, and splicing channel. T-Bass, Dusty, Tony, Jeff, and Vivek was episode 36.
Oh, nice.
Totally worth listening. TORQ version 0.23.0. Very, very cool project. At least like how it looks. I haven't used it, but open telemetry instruments, Jagger tracing, Prometheus export, peer page now supports. I don't know, for people running Lightning sort of in an enterprise setting, this seems to be a very cool way of like keeping tab on things.
Yeah, doing it all yourself is a pain. It's like we built a lot of our own software, and having something plug and play seems kind of nice, especially with all sort of like the organizational permissions you need for people to have access to things. So
are you using TORQ? You tried it?
We're not right now because we've built a bunch of since we've been running Lightning for so long.
We built in house, right?
We were running things, yeah. So maybe that'll change down the road, but I haven't dug deep into it. I don't know if it does everything we need, but yeah, really, honestly, one of the biggest challenges is accounting stuff with Lightning. So,
yes,
we're actually in the last phases of an audit right now, and it's like explaining Lightning to the auditors every year is like the worst part of it.
Yes.
But anyways, that's a rabbit hole.
That's what programmers always miss when they work in financial software, is that the fact that you still have to like produce spreadsheets with like a canonical way that an accountant needs to see.
Yes.
And we do this every year. We also have to do our own, like the WAC calculation for us is like, it's such an absolute nightmare because like we're essentially like both DCA, bulk acquiring Bitcoin, and then there's Bitcoin transactions out as well. And it's like a third to half of our revenue is in Bitcoin. So like, God, it's, we've actually created an internal program that you put in a JSON file of all the transactions that happen in the shopping cart, and it can understand how we do consolidations and what goes where, and like understands adjustment lines is something that like Bitcoiners don't seem to comprehend, that you have an adjustment line and that does not have a transaction with it. And all these things are very sort of up to interpretation on how you want to do your accounting and how you want to do adjustments. Oh, it's
and then it's like tax selection methodologies and
yep.
Yeah, it's a whole can of worms.
I'm saying like whoever comes up with like a true amazing like load up your UTXO list kind of thing and put in your notes and sort of like helps you like sort out your accounting of that wallet will make a lot of money. And ideally it pushes back to Zero and QuickBooks and things like that properly too. Yeah. Huge business opportunity there. Voltage Surge. Surge provides node operators with a way to access visualize valuable data about their node. Data includes node's health, detailed payment history, and a bunch of other things. Boltz, new web app, United Liquid and main chain swaps, increased liquid swaps, and a bunch of other things. Lightning Terminal, multi-node UX, manage multiple nodes in a single UX. Zebedee, time-based rewards, get paid to Bitcoin simply playing games. Stacker News, version 1.0.5, remove block and flutter from block stuff. Profile page, tap user button to send tip, and layout adjustments. All right, Project Spotlight, LDK Node, a ready-to-go Lightning node library built using LDK and BDK. This is a very cool project. Very, very cool project. So people should look at it. Coffee Plugin Manager, a plugin manager for for C Lightning, Core Lightning, C Lightning. Let's keep the terminology correct. Takes care of configuration installation of a plugin for your C Lightning node. Cashu-rs-mint, a new cashu-mint implementation in Rust. Lightning Piggy, an electronic cash piggy bank for children to accept Bitcoin sent over Lightning. Nostr updates. We're keeping very light updates for Nostr now because we have the Nostr review. We had one and we're going to have another one in probably a week or two. Primal one tap Zaps. Now there's a demo and it's available on their primal.net. Project Spotlight, Oak Node, a L&D node tool that lets users send scheduled Lightning payments. Interact with your node over Nostr DMs or PGP secured emails, mine Nostr vanity keys, and more. Kind of cool.
How do you do a pre-scheduled Lightning? I guess you just kind of set up on a cron job timer. I was thinking you're not pre-signing the transaction because if you're routing fees in between, you're changing your channel state, so you can't pre-commit ahead of time. So I guess you're just holding it and then initiating the transaction at a set time. I was thinking like it'd be like a pre-signed thing, like a PSBT, but your channel state changes, and that doesn't work.
Absolutely no idea.
All right.
Boosts. So thanks, guys, for sending us some boosts. Remember, 5% of the boosts go to OpenSats. Ape Mifridier, value for value. Dubravko, why you no read boosts? I read boosts for you now. Michael Matuleaf, the group laugher is contagious. Yes, the Nostr review was it was like we were all on some funny gas or something. We couldn't stop laughing.
I enjoy listening to that. Pablo just is like half that episode because he does 75 projects.
That's right. It's kind of like the Pablo review.
It is Pablo.review.
All right. So Uptalk News, people should go listen to their pod now and like go check the actual newsletter, subscribe to it. We like to just list them, but we normally don't go into depth into them. Proposal to extend Bolt 11 invoices to request to payments. Discussion about Taproot Annex and draft BIP for silent payments. So go read in depth there. News and noteworthy. Ledger Recover cryptographic protocol white paper was released. It's kind of nice that they're releasing and trying to be more open about their stuff. It's still tricky because, like most of the sources, it's going to be closed. So it doesn't really matter if it's open in that sense. You can't verify. BitKey invites first external customers in beta launch. Binance Pool launches the BTC transaction accelerator. Ministry of Nodes Bitcoin node box built from refurbished Dell Optex micro PC.
And it's actually interesting that node box is coming at quite a bit cheaper than the options in the node in the box solutions often.
Really?
Yeah, it's the refurbished PC market is pretty cost efficient.
Yeah, I mean, Ketan is a beast. That's who runs Ministry of Nodes. Bitcoin-centric AI, Spirit of Satoshi. Oh, that's kind of fun. I think maybe Brad is part of this group.
Brad's obsessed with it.
They're trying to teach one of this AI chatbots to be more knowledgeable about Bitcoin and not just sort of spill out like crap from Wikipedia. It's kind of useful.
Having fun doing that sometimes, presenting like scripts and then like having conversations with ChatGPT just on like, what is this script doing? And then you get some weird answers, but it's gotten better.
Binance joins Lightning Network with a node. So that's very interesting that Binance is like, doing Lightning because they are like the biggest volume of all the exchanges, right? So,
I think that's going to be big.
Yeah.
I think it's like a big like boost in the network effect.
For sure. I mean, like Nostr was probably like the most amount of transactions Lightning ever had. So like, and that shouldn't be true, because like, it's like maybe 700,000 active users on Nostr. We want to see like, like the next thing. And yes, Binance is ginormous. The Lightning Network is closely approaching all-time high levels, 5,600 BTC on the network. Santander blog post highlights the benefits of Lightning in enhancing Bitcoin scalability. That's interesting. Miscellaneous. This is neither Bitcoin nor Lightning, but it kind of uses both. So Taproot Assets. They had a software update version 0.2.2. It's kind of an interesting project. You can actually now create shitcoins on Bitcoin, essentially.
Well, I think we all hope that the NFTs leave the base chain and go off and use TapD. I mean, that would be ideal. It seems to be designed for it. So,
dream on, man. Oh. The guys who like to collect shit, they want to see it on a block.
Degens want.
Well, the non-fungible assets with the Taproot assets, they have collectibles and then the fungible assets. So the fungible assets are transferable over Lightning, but the collectibles aren't. So it would still be on the base chain.
Okay. So they're still taking space. That's what the market wants.
Yeah. Like if you think about like the first principles, you can't like transfer, you can't have because the channels are going to be asset specific. So you can't have an asset specific channel for a non-fungible asset.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the market is going to do what the market is going to do.
Yeah. That said, the mempool is showing signs of reducing in size. I like to watch it, as do many.
I mean, if Bitcoin is winning, technically it should never clear again,
Yeah.
Finance. Okay, crypto custody, Prime Trust. I hate this part of the show. I'm not even going to do it. So yeah, Prime Trust, man, like what a fucking shit show. I feel for the new CEO who got in there to inherit that clusterfuck, probably not knowing the depth of the clusterfuck. I always feel for the CEOs who join a sinking ship and have to clean up the house as best as they can, and they end up inheriting the blame too. It's a fucking shit job.
Yeah, the thing about these like trust companies is you get like the normie CEO that comes in and doesn't understand that there's this whole new landscape of things that could go wrong that's just not possible that he's never seen in his career. Yeah.
Yeah, was it like a 56% of the assets they have on hand for the liabilities of the trust accounts? And just the whole idea of a trust account is that shouldn't be possible. And then it's going to be a whole
nothing is possible until your asset drops 50% in price, right?
Well, yeah, and then they have apparently. I was looking at the notes, like they have $60 million of this random like wave token thing that's just sitting there as like their assets on balance sheet, but there's no liquidity, so they don't really have $60 million of token asset. They have very much less. They
had pretty much all the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin was there, so like
all the Bitcoin users left.
Yeah, well, but there was essentially at the time that lawsuit paper came out, I think they had like almost 1-to-1 to the 69 million worth of Bitcoin and 68 million worth of Bitcoin liabilities and 69 million in Bitcoin or something like that.
I think that was their crypto liability. And that's what I was talking about. Like their crypto liability, there was like basically near full.
Why are we talking about this? It's not software. Fuck this shit.
Well, the cryptography.
Well, there was some software. What happened was they lost the keys.
Yeah.
It was a Fireblocks instance, right?
Right.
Yeah. So they messed up the software. They messed up the key management, and people kept depositing to addresses they didn't have the keys to, based on the docs that came out.
Scary.
So it is actually it actually was a software and organizational failure.
Thanks for clearing this up, Alex.
Yeah.
I mean, Fireblocks is the MPC shit show that you have to do because it's not Bitcoin.
Well, actually, the MPC. Well, I would actually counter that and say MPC like would still be required with Bitcoin to give the guarantees you want with a product like that, which is like permanent addresses with the ability to rotate out signers, like Frost.
I see. Yeah, no, but that's the thing, right? You're not using Bitcoin primitives, right? That's the reason why they do MPC.
My understanding of what happened could have happened with a multi-sig wallet. They just like lost it. Like they didn't back it up and lost the keys. But like the new management didn't realize this and started reusing that wallet and those deposit addresses. And a bunch of deposits started flowing there and they're inaccessible. So it could have happened with a ledger. It could have happened with any key management solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard thing too. I mean, like it's all new, right? Like there's not like, we don't have 100 years of like, custodying like a digital asset, right? Like it's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost always like somebody you can appeal to, right? You just keep going up the chain until you appeal to somebody in the fiat world. But when you lose a private key, it's a very different situation. As we know, there is no one you can appeal to, and I think as a industry, as a we're just not used to that. We're just not used to this thing is gone and gone forever, and there's absolutely no way I can get it back, no matter how much money I spend. It's just it's just not something which is familiar to us.
And that's I sent a tweet out earlier this week that like the cryptography is like 80 to 100 years ahead of the legislation and understanding this stuff. Like it's very
exactly.
You'll never be a parody, and
no, because the law is just interpretation. It's not math, right? I mean, it is what the people of the day want it to be. So yeah, like, there's nothing you can do really. Software and math would never be fully compatible with the law because, in court it's going to be like whoever has the experts, the judge or the jury sort of like believe. And that's it. Like, you can probably, convince a jury that like 2 + 2 = 5 and that's it. Like there's no precedent in law for that.
Well, Craig Wright's trying to do that.
Yep.
For BSV. Exactly. Yeah. Court orders into the blockchain.
Hey, Alex, I know you need to leave. So do you want to give your final thoughts before you jump?
Thanks for having me on the show. I'd say learn to build. I love that. And keep getting smarter and smarter about all the types of risks that might impact you and your assets and your coins or those of people you care about or the companies you run. You can't be too informed, and don't be afraid to think for yourself.
Good one, sir. Thank you for coming.
See you guys.
And surviving.
Thanks, Alex.
An hour and 40 minutes. Take care. All right. The Bitcoin ETF race. Also not interested in talking about it. Just going to say that MicroStrategy is kind of already the ETF anyway. So I don't think BlackRock would waste their time if they didn't think they had a chance. But, maybe it's just signaling. Maybe they just want to pump the price because they have bags now. All right, so Hong Kong HSBCs allows customers to trade Bitcoin ETFs, signaling a shifting. That's interesting too. I mean, listen, everybody wants your sats, right? They're all coming for your sats. Shitcoin wreckage, unregistered securities removed from Robinhood. That's funny. Security, North Korean hackers pocketed more than 100 million in atomic wallet hack. Ha.
Oh man.
It's like essentially like North Korea now runs on Bitcoin hacks, right? Like and like crypto asset, like shitcoinery hacks.
Yeah, so Atomic Wallet was a multi-coin wallet. What was the bug that they had that caused that leak of funds?
We actually don't know. They at least, there's been no sort of clear information that I've seen that indicates what the cause was, which is probably even worse than knowing what it was.
Right.
So yeah, it feels like all of these, if you do a search for Bitcoin wallet, as we all know, and you just the top names that come up are just wallets that should never be used, and it feels like every one of them is going to have to be hacked so that better wallets come up to the top.
Yep.
Maybe the path of maximum pain is the only path, as Adele would say.
Yep. I mean, people don't learn, right? Malicious Trezor wallet suite app in the App Store steals crypto by requesting seed phrase. I always say this, like hardware wallets should not have client wallets. It's a security hole. Like I want a third party, another vendor to be the client wallet, because now you have two parties participating in a transaction, right? Through two solutions. So they kind of help things in check. It keeps sanity, hygiene, security hygiene. Anyways, it's, and you know, like Trezor, Ledger, Suites and things, they all like essentially have those so they can unload shitcoins easy for people into them. Like, you know, it's easy for people to one-click buy shit.
Yeah.
This is all because of the shitcoinery. All of this.
Yeah, and I would go further to what you just said. I think that if you're the guy who's building the wallet that people run, you should ideally not be running the server that it connects to as well. You should,
Yes.
you know, so you should have a different vendor for the hardware wallet, a different vendor for the software wallet, and then someone else running the server that it connects to. So you should actually be able to broken up into three, because then you really have the chance of collusion between all of those three parties being extremely low. And I think that that's a good, healthy place to be.
Yeah, it just makes sense that you're distributing the governance and the running of that code across multiple entities in a way where it's that Pulp Fiction meme, right? Everyone's holding a gun to everyone else's head, and you just don't have to worry about being controlling like where all that information's sitting.
Yep. It's, you know, I really feel strong about this. It's one of the reasons why we never made an app, like a CoinKite wallet app.
Right.
You know, we could make a great app and then it'll be easy to use, you know, but like, it's not good. You know, it's not again, anti-pattern.
I think the way CoinKite, you guys chose to handle this, just I mentioned earlier, just going with descriptors, going with PSBTs.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a very simple format that everyone else speaks, and it just make that your, like, you handle it.
I mean, the only reason why we made CodeCard is because PSBT was around.
Right.
We weren't going to make it because there is absolutely no way I'm going to make a hardware wallet that requires a custom protocol for the wallet to talk to the client wallet, right?
Right.
And, you know, like the way it should be is, you know, we go and we talk to Craig about like more things, more integration, more easy of use things we can do together as two vendors. And what's nice is that he keeps us in check, we keep him in check, right? As the two separate actors interacting with that transaction. It's like you gain security in that. You gain more bug checks and like it's an important relationship.
Yeah, I think that Andrew Chow is very much the unsung hero for the PSBT and output descriptor work he's done. You know, he doesn't get talked about much, but he's put a lot in that. A lot of the stuff we build today is built on. So
yeah,
credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, like he did HWI, which was like ungodly work, maintaining like a bunch of USB like drivers for every hardware wallet.
He still does it. Yeah,
still does.
And PSBT, like he wrote it that it was forgotten for years. Like it was completely unused.
Yeah, and now there's a PSBT v2.
Yeah.
But the only people I've seen ever touching that, I actually found someone else. So Ledger's using PSBT v2s and C Lightning is using PSBT v2s.
We're starting to look into it. Like it's going to have to happen because there's reasons.
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah, started from hater to lover. It's strong beliefs loosely held.
That's right.
My way of existing.
That's right.
So it's funny. Like we have a few listeners that don't take the like they don't understand it's a joke sometimes. That are like shitting on some stuff. So like they send some hate mail, you know. All right, new Sparrow grantee. Matthew is experienced iOS developer. Oh, it's okay, yeah, Matthew Ramsday. Like he also built Blockstream. It's like a nice little app for the iPhone that shows the block height.
Yeah, that's great. He co-hosts the
great.
Nashville Bit Devs. So he's awesome.
He's really good.
Yeah, it's good that Steve has some BDK buddies.
He works on LDK, BDK, everything.
Yeah.
Very nice. Mining Riot purchases 7.6 exahashes. Jesus Christ. Reads deep dive into zero knowledge proofs by Noah. So these are like articles, links that we have on the show notes. ARC Layer 2, groundbreaking development in Bitcoin transaction landscape by Noah. Bitcoin as a non-violent tool against state financial censorship. That's great. By Vio M. Kakomaki. I'm sorry, I'm butchering names here. I have one more to add to the list. I highly recommend if you're a dev to read this and take this deeply inside you. Grugbrain.dev. It is a fantastic piece of like reflection and advice on how to be a developer and like how you should think about your code. You know, it really talks about like, you know, complexity is the enemy. It's really, really good piece. It's actually part of the obligated reading list now at CoinKite if you're a dev.
Is this your website or is this someone else put this up?
No. This is somebody.
Oh, this is great. I'm gonna have to
really, really good.
I identify as a left curver, so I'll have to give this a read.
Nice.
Any other things we're missing, guys?
Well, nothing much going on in Bitcoin. We got to the part of the show where even the guests are falling to sleep and disappearing. That's since Alex isn't here anymore, I'm just gonna say he fell asleep. He didn't actually have to leave.
That's right. Listen, guys, thank you so much for coming. Any final thoughts, Craig?
I guess I'm just going to say, with everything going on in Bitcoin right now, the answer, as always, is to self-custody. You know, get a wallet, download your funds, and make sure that you hold them yourself. Don't delay. But I know that I'm speaking to the choir here because anyone who survived this far is doing that already.
100%.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, the motto is there's nothing happening in Bitcoin, okay? Nothing. This list we just read was totally bullshit. Rob, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts, yeah. If you're curious about anything I talked about with Miniscript, just hit me up on Twitter at ROB1HAM, Rob1Ham, and I'm happy to. I've had a lot of people reach out to me that are working on small projects touching it, so I'm always happy to be a sounding board. And if you want to test, also hit me up as well for all the stuff we're doing with CoinKite, getting the COLDCARD merged in with Trident now. And I would echo Craig's sentiment, self-custody and learn to build. Just keep on. The bear markets are here for you to improve yourself. So this is a great time just to get dirty. Whatever level of competency you are, go one step further. There's always that advice, Rodolfo, you've said on. Just think about if your Bitcoin was 10x'd. So understanding what your security situation is and be anticipating for when the price rips again. You want to make sure that you're in your lane, moisturized, happy, content, secure, and no problems at all. So now is the time to do that, and not frantically when Bitcoin rips and all of a sudden, you have way too much money stored under your mattress.
That's right. Custody your shit. Get your shit together, custody-wise, before the pumps.
Right.
But then, once you never move funds fast. Never freak out and do things. Order the hardware wallets, get one of each, try them all before you decide what you want to use, and then gift the ones that you don't want to other friends, but seriously, try the stuff, all the stuff is cheap and learn and go slow and, Bitcoin and chill. All right, guys, thank you so much. And with this, we are out. Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.